love it. I'm curious. Wanna know what's on your mind. I'm curious. About your love it. I'm curious. Wanna know what's on your mind.
Are there some questions you just want to know the answers to? Well, the Relationship Rescuer and Lip Service Lounge is taking it to the streets with a new segment called I'm Curious. I want to know what's on your mind. Today, I need to ask 2 questions and see what's on people's mind. The first question is, for dating people, when you're looking for someone, when you're fishing in the sea of love, which sex tends to use the old bait and switch more, and which bait and switch option do they use? For instance, if a girl likes a guy and she knows that he is really heavy into sports, how many women really pretend to like sports and really be into sports when they're really not, just to get the guy? And once they've secured him, he can't drag her to a Hawks game, a Falcons game, or a Steelers game. That's the old bait and switch. So I want to know, do men employ that technique more, or do women? And what's the most popular bait and switch technique that men and women use? The second question I have is, I've often wondered why the statement, you can't turn a hoe into a housewife, is more popular than the question I think should be posed, can you really turn a man into a good house husband? Because no matter what type of man he is, whether he's a good guy or a bad boy, the probability of infidelity happening is usually on the man. So, whether or not she's a woman that's had one too many partners, or she's a stripper, or what other thing people deem as hoe characteristics, typically when she finds herself in a relationship, she's pretty okay and can redeem herself of those qualities. So, should the question be, can you turn a man into a good house husband, as opposed to, can you turn a hoe into a housewife? Let's take it to the streets. We're here at the Jazz Festival in Piedmont Park in Atlanta on a beautiful day, so I know we'll get a lot of good responses. Let's go. Which sex is most guilty of using the good old bait and switch technique? And then which bait and switch technique do they usually use? I have Ryan here with us today. And Ryan, could you answer that question for me? Which sex do you think is most guilty of using the bait and switch technique?
As much as I want to, represent for the fellas out here, I would have to say the fellas the most.
Honest answer. Okay.
And, most females I've encountered, they've always been about their word. But I would say the fellas most likely, because we would probably most likely say we're not like most other guys that you talk to. But, 9 times out of 10, they, we mess up just like the fast guy did. So, I'll have to just do it like that. Say it like that.
And is there any specific bait and switch technique that guys use most often to get a woman?
Well, just basically saying I'm just not like the other guy. I'm not the other guy.
I'll treat you differently.
Yeah, I
won't cheat. I won't do those things. Okay.
Yeah, basically.
Okay. All right. Well, the second question I had is, I'm often puzzled by the statement, you can't turn a hoe into a housewife. I really want to know, should the question be, can you turn a man into a good house husband? Because most often in a relationship, it's the guy that cheats. What do you think, Ryan?
Man.
Be honest. You were honest with the first question.
Yeah, I was honest with the first one. I mean, I'm always going to stay honest, but I would have to say, I really don't know, honestly. I mean, in my situation, I've never really been cheated. I've had flirtations. I've flirted around a little bit. You know what I'm saying? But never really did the cheating thing, so I don't consider myself a cheater.
So do you think it's possible to turn a man into a good house husband, whether he's a good boy or a bad boy? Can they be faithful?
I mean, I'm not going to speak on everyone because not everyone's the same, but I know there are a select few out there that can be changed. But I don't believe everyone, because that's just that goes right into you want to grow up and mature. You know, and what you want for yourself, you know, your own love life. You know, I would have to say, you know, it depends on, you know, the person and, you know, the maturity level.
Okay. So Ryan has said that guys are the ones that use the bait and switch technique the most, and it just depends on the person as to whether or not they can be a faithful partner. Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate
No problem.
it. All right. Have a good day.
You too.
So today we're in the park with Edward and Sophie, and we're asking the questions today about dating and then infidelity in a relationship. Who's really the most responsible for that happening? What's the probability? So the first question I'd like to ask Edward today is, when dating, which sex is most often guilty of using the old bait and switch technique? And which technique do you think they use?
Well, now, I'm going to preface it by saying that both sexes can be guilty of it. In my personal experience, what I've seen, not necessarily with my personal experience, but more with like my friends and just in general, is that I would have to say that women are probably more guilty of the old bait and switch technique, just because I think they feel more pressure personally to be invested in what it is that their partner is enjoying, while men tend to be a little bit more selfish, and I think that has something to do with it. So personally, I've never been a guy who would, you know, oh hey, let's go see The Notebook in the theater. Like, I would never be willing to cave and be like, oh yeah, like The Notebook, that sounds awesome.
So you never claimed to be the sensitive guy.
Yeah. No, but I'm also, like I said, just I would never pretend to enjoy it. Nevertheless, not be honest and say no. I don't want to do it. Now, would I do it? Yes, but I'd probably be pessimistic and narcissistic about it. Be like, no, this is stupid, and not extraordinarily open-minded. While I just think because women tend to be more nurturing in the relationship, that you know, it's not like I don't think it's vicious. I just think it's, you know, they want to make their man happy or whatever. They want to say, okay, you know, he really loves baseball, and you know, I'm gonna enjoy it because I enjoy being around him.
So it's not intentional to, you're saying, if I hear you correctly, it's not intentional. I'm not saying I enjoy something that I really don't, but I really want to.
Yes,
make sure
that's more my experience with it. I've never seen it like in the early stages of dating where it's like, oh hey, let me pretend to be invested in all this to you know, bait the guy, and then once I hook him, now it's like, oh, I don't like it. I think it's actually just more of like a, you know, hey, I'm going to give a little here, so you know the relationship works. I mean, it's a little bit of give and take, and I would say, if anything, women are better at it than men. So.
We usually are better at most things than men, so that's okay. That's a unique perspective. Okay, and do you have a particular ideas to which type of bait and switch technique women or men may use the most with this sex or sports?
You know, like I said, personally, I'm heavily invested in sports, so all my friends are and all that, and you know, I've had buddies that we go to sporting events, and you know, their girlfriend would, let's say he's the one who got tickets. You know, his girlfriend would be, oh, I'm excited, I love the Devils or whatever, like, please take me, and then like we'd show up, and she wouldn't know anything about it. Like, wait, so if they put the puck in the net, is that a touchdown? And it's like, oh god, like we could have given that ticket to Steve.
Somebody else.
You know, like, so I would say sports is the most prevalent that I saw, but I don't think I've really ever necessarily seen a bait, like trying to hook somebody and then cut somebody like in a vicious sense, you know. Like I just think it's been more like, hey, I want to do this to be supportive.
Okay. And the second question is, I've always wondered why the statement "you can't turn a hoe into a housewife" is more common than being concerned with whether or not, or the question being, can you turn a man into a good house husband? Because typically when infidelity occurs in a relationship, it's usually on the man's part. And I've not found it to be the case where it's more prevalent if the guy's a good guy or a bad guy. So, can you turn a man into a good house husband?
I think you could do either, and I think they're both rough statements that not necessarily reflect the situation, but more how, and this is going to get maybe not political, but a little philosophical in saying that the United States hasn't progressed as far as like maybe European countries in terms of gender roles and stereotypes and all that. And I think we're just a little bit behind the curve, and I think that's why that statement's more prevalent. Just like we're not as progressive in, some racial things as well.
I agree.
So I just think the United States isn't, as a whole, progressive enough to really have matured.
So women can have sexual freedom and not be labeled hoe, and men.
Yeah, and I would say that I think we're still a little bit behind the times in that regard, but I disagree with these things.
Well, there you have it. Thank you, Amber.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. All right, Joelle, you agreed to answer my questions today. So our statement, so you understand exactly what I'm saying. When dating, which sex is most often more guilty of employing the old bait and switch technique to get someone?
Well, I think both are guilty, but maybe the female more so, because I think the female tends to conform more easily and give in, and they're the one who I think compromises more easily.
Okay.
And so, yeah.
All right. And is there any particular bait and switch technique that you think women would use more often to get that partner?
I think maybe pretending a couple of things to like their family more than they do.
Oh, that's a good one. I hadn't heard that today.
And sports too, maybe pretending to like sports more, and then they get to the relationship parking in front of the big screen TV.
Okay. Yeah. All right. And the second question I have today, Julie, is I've often wondered about the statement, you can't turn a hoe into a housewife. Well, for me, I've always thought that the question should be, can you turn a man into a good housewife? Because usually, if there's infidelity in the relationship, it's usually the men, the ones that are committing the infidelity. Not to say that women don't cheat, but it's usually the men. So, do you agree with the statement, or do you think the question should really be, can you turn a man into a good housewife?
That's a very good question. I think for me, a whore is a whore, whether they are male or female.
Okay.
So to try to magically change somebody into something they are not. But yes, historically, men, are the ones who are labeled as dogs. And so I think unless the man is truly a person who's loyal to begin with and a good person, there's no turning a whore period into something they're not.
Male or female, if you're a whore, you're just a whore.
You're just a whore.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. Thank you so much. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. All right. All right. Braylon, so I just want to know, I've been curious, Daria as well, I just wanted to ask you a couple questions and just get your opinion on a couple of things. The first question would be, when men and women are dating, when you're looking for love and you're trying to find a mate, which sex is most guilty of employing the old bait and switch technique? And which bait and switch technique is most often used? Raylene, what do you think?
Now I'm going to sound real sexist, and I'm going to say that men do.
Okay.
And men pretend to have position, power, or fame that they don't have.
Okay.
So women that are attracted to that get all into the guy, and you get to go places, you get to do things, and then the relationship gets real, and then all of a sudden, maybe I can't afford to do this. Maybe you got this one right. You got me on this.
Yeah, Marty's living at home in his mama's face.
Right, and that's why he got that. That's why he got that 750. Yes, exactly.
Okay. All right, Derek, what do you think?
I'm going to go the opposite way, and I'm going to say the female.
Okay.
Only for the simple fact of how you said that, people come into the relationship thinking that it's going to be one way, and a female is more wanting things to be her way, I have to say. And when she feels as if the dude isn't doing it her way anymore, she's out.
Yeah, okay. So do you think it's anything that a woman might use particularly to get a man, and then when it doesn't go her way, she's out? Like she might have said, okay, well, I'm really okay with frequent and outrageous sex. She got him, and then things didn't work out like she wanted. Then she cut the sex off and she was out. Do you think there's anything in particular that women use as a bait technique?
Yeah, I would say their bodies. And makeup, how they present themselves. They come off one way. You know, this is me, beautiful, every day. And then come to find out that's not her. It's that
Everything is real different when you get home.
okay. Yes.
Okay, well, those are two honest answers. Okay, my next question, I'll start with you, Daria. Okay, I've always wondered about the statement, you can't turn a hoe into a housewife. For me, I think the question should be, can you turn a man into a good house husband? Because typically, if there's infidelity in the relationship, it may be on the part of the man. Not saying that women don't cheat, but it may be on the part of the man. I don't care if he's a good guy, a bad boy. Usually, if cheating occurs, it's the guy. So shouldn't the question be, or do you think the question should be, can you turn a man into a good house husband?
I believe so. Because I feel as if men can look at females and feel as if, can you be the perfect housewife? You know, we should be able to look at them the same way. Be like, are you the perfect house husband? You know, I don't believe in double standards. Whatever goes for me goes for you too.
Okay. Well, that's fair. What about you?
I believe that when a man is ready to settle down, he will settle down, and he will not cheat. He won't do any of those things. So he can be turned into a house husband, but only when he's ready to do it. And no matter what pressure the woman tries to put on him, until he's ready, he's going to still be out there.
Those are two honest answers from Jazz in the Park. All right, thank you, Daria. Thank you, Raylene. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I have Charmaine and RJ here with me today. So I'll start with you, Charmaine. Okay. First question I have is, when men and women are looking for love, which sex is most guilty of employing the old bait and switch technique, and which technique is most often used? I'm going to say men. They claim that they can cook, but they can't. They can't. They know how to grill a little bit, but they don't know how to really get in the kitchen. That's one thing that women look for in a man, is a man that can cook. And when you present that to a woman, she's like, oh, okay. And then when you get into the kitchen, you burn in the collard greens. Yeah, and you got hot dogs. We hot dogs and noodles.
I agree.
Okay. All right. RJ, you agree that it's mostly the men?
I agree, because I've had oodles and noodles, you know, the Roman noodles made for me, and they throw hot sauce on it, and that's supposed to be a gourmet meal.
Okay, so you both agree that men are the ones that most often employ the bait and switch. Yeah, it's about food.
Well, I mean, women, we're good at it too.
Sports thing.
But at least we'll take a few lessons before we get tied up in the relationship.
Okay.
You know, I watch Sports Center for about an hour before I can say I know something about the
Well, at
Falcons.
least you did your homework.
Yeah,
You know, I don't know if that's bait and switch if you did your homework beforehand.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
I could tell you who won the last Super Bowl. Don't ask that question now.
Okay, and the second question I have, I'll start with you, RJ. I've always wondered why the statement, you can't turn a hoe into a housewife, is so popular. To me, shouldn't the question be, can you turn a man into a good house husband? Because usually in a relationship, it's the guy that cheats.
Yeah, this is true. Well, I think personally, girls been doing it for a long time. He's been getting away with it. He's been getting away with it for a long time. That's what it is. And guys, we're so comfortable with them doing it. It's nothing. It's really nothing. We expect the man to cheat. We don't expect women to cheat because we don't get away with it. We don't get caught. Right.
So you're saying because we expect men to cheat, we don't even think about turn a man into a good house husband.
We assume it. Well, the first thing you get in a relationship with a guy, every woman is guilty of saying she has trust issues because she assumed that the man is going to cheat.
Yeah. I just feel like, you know, at some point in time, everybody needs to be rescued. I think it depends on where you want to go with the relationship, but I feel like men definitely take on the persona that if you know, you're dating a woman and she's out there, that, you know, she's automatically a hoe and she's not going to be able to become a wife. But I just feel like we all have to make sure that we're doing what we have to do as an individual to get to that point. So the term being coined, you can't turn a hoe into a housewife, sometimes you can.
sometimes you can turn a man into a good house man, good husband. It just depends on how much you're willing to work on.
So it's not based on sex. It's based on who's ready for the relationship.
Exactly. Your maturity. Most of the time is when the man is ready. Girl always sees they claim to be
already ready for a relationship.
Yeah, they
were
are
born to be married and wives, and that's my thought.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
We since our baby dolls, we had our Barbies and cats.
Thank you so much, RJ and Tremaine. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
I'm here with James and Karima at Jazz in the Park, and the relationship rescuer has a couple questions that she just needs to answer to. And I'm going to just shout the questions out. James, I'll start with you first, and then you just tell me what you think. The first question is, when dating, which sex is the most guilty of using the old bait and switch technique to get the man or the woman, and which bait and switch technique is most often used, you think?
I think it's the female.
Oh, why is that, James?
The female tell you, they show you that the outfits, and the glamorous living, with the Fendi bags and the Louis bags, but then when you get to their home, it's not even worth one of the bags.
Oh, wow. Okay, so they appear to be real fabulous, but it's really not that.
It's not that.
Okay, all right. And Karima, what do you think? Which sex do you think is the most guilty?
I say the man.
Okay.
For the simple fact that they are trying to get to sex most of the time.
Okay.
So they'll tell you things like, especially let's just say you're a woman that's looking for a relationship. They'll tell you things like, oh, they're ready for a relationship, I'm ready to settle down and stuff like that. Just so they can GTD, get the draws.
That was GTD, get the draws.
GTD. Or whatever. And then, once that happens, it's like, okay, what happened? You're no longer wanting to be in a relationship, and all that stuff you was talking is just out the window, and you know what I'm saying? And everything that you were doing, the time spending, and all of that is all over.
That's real talk.
So, yeah.
Okay. And the second question I have, I'll start with you, Karima. I've always wondered why the statement, you can't turn a hoe into a housewife, is the statement that everybody makes. I think it should personally be, the question should be, can you turn a man into a good house husband? Because usually it's the man that cheats. I ain't saying women don't cheat, but it's usually the man. So do you think the question should be, can you turn a man into a good house husband?
I don't really believe in turning anybody into anything. My thing is, when you go into a relationship, give it the time to see what that person is about. You know what I'm saying? And then you have to see if that's the direction that they're headed in. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't just want to make that happen. They have to. I mean, that has to be. Both parties have to be involved. You know what I'm saying? So he has to want to be that type of dude. He has to already be that type of dude. I'm not trying to make you into that type of dude. You know what I'm saying? So my thing is, it's a choice. I'm not going to sit there and see certain things showing me that you're not that type of guy, and I'm going to just let it go over my head and say, okay, well, maybe you'll change. Maybe I can do something to make you change. No, that's not me.
It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, I'm already had to see that he has those qualities.
All right, James.
I kind of agree with you. The little hoe into a housewife thing, I don't give it that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because you never know who you're gonna meet and what type of effect that they're gonna have on you. You know what I'm saying? So I kind of agree with her on that, like 100%. It's only who you are. You turn people into who you are, what you want them to be.
Okay, so what I hear from both of you, it doesn't matter if you're a guy or a girl. You're going to be ready for a relationship when you're ready, no matter what your background is.
Yeah, no, nobody can make you do anything. You know what I'm saying? You have to be that person. It has to be in you to want to be a house husband. You know what I'm saying? That's just like a man. A man can be a very good man, but he might not be a good father. You know what I'm saying? So it's a difference. He can be a very good man while y'all in a relationship, but when it comes to holding down a household, he might not be good at that.
We're going to start a debate here with Karima and James. Oh, wow. Well, that kept it really, really real with us. And I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much, Karima and James. All right.
All right.
All right, James. I have a couple questions I want to ask you. People have written in to ask me a few things, and I picked out two today that I thought would be really interesting to get answers to. And the first question is, when dating, which sex do you think is the most guilty of employing the old bait and switch technique, and which technique is usually the most popular?
I would probably say men.
Okay, men.
Because if a man is interested in a woman, whatever, when he finds out whatever her interests are, you know, in order to get next to her or you know, get close to her, find out more about her, he's going to pretend he likes to go shopping or, you know, likes romantic walks in the park and, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And that may or may not be who he really is.
So you're saying if I start dating a guy, he's okay with carrying my bags every Saturday, that might not be really who he is?
Of course. And, you know, 3-6 months into it, you probably couldn't pay him to carry you. Not saying.
Okay.
You know, I mean, most men are generally, you know, if they're interested in a woman, they're generally going to put the best foot forward.
Okay.
You know, so.
That's a real answer.
Yeah.
Okay, and any particular bait and switch technique you think men employ most often?
Oh, wow. I mean, that could have 100 answers. I mean, I would probably say maybe if there's children involved, a lot of times men pretend to, you know, want to step in and be a father figure.
Oh, I hadn't heard that. Good.
You know,
Okay.
and be a role model for the kids, this kind of thing, just to get next to them. And that may not be what they generally are, so that becomes.
Yeah, that is one you need to watch out for. We hadn't heard that one today. Okay, and my second question is, I've always wondered why the statement, "you can't turn a hoe into a housewife," is a popular statement, because typically women are reared or really are interested in having a relationship. And typically, no matter what their background is, once they get into the relationship, they may conform. So any ways that may have had back then, they may not have anymore. And if there's infidelity that may occur in a relationship, I'm not saying that women don't cheat. It's usually the guy, the one that's at fault with the indiscretion of the infidelity. So shouldn't a statement, instead of it being, "can you turn a hoe into a housewife," can you turn a man into a good house husband?
I think you can. I think people do change. You know, everybody has a past. Doesn't matter, you know, where you come from. People do change.
Okay.
You know, but if a man's looking for a wife, yeah, you want someone that's, you know, maybe, you know, less travel.
That's very politically correct.
You know, and women are generally looked upon as being more pure. You know, so I think that kind of comes into play. But people do change. I mean, everybody has a past, and we all have, you know, done things in the past that may or may not be proud of. But you look at the person for who they are at the moment, not who they used to be.
Okay, oh, that's fair. That's really good.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. Everybody has a past, so people should be able to overlook what's in the past if they're really interested in
Correct.
forming a relationship with this person.
Correct.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
My
You
pleasure.
gave some real answers today, something I hadn't thought about. All right. When dating, which sex do you think is the most guilty of employing the old bait and switch technique to get whomever they're after? And which bait and switch technique is the most popular? Sean, we'll start with you.
I mean, it's always a man. Image, really. I'm trying to talk to the guy that's so, I mean, it's always the money.
I'm feeling some kind of way about this.
I kind of agree with that. For the man, it's always in a financial sense. They're bait and switches. Like you might borrow your cousin bills to take a girl out or something like that. Especially in Atlanta, because Atlanta a lot of times is about the status to people. With females, more so, I think about it may be about like their hobbies or their interests or stuff like that. They'll tell a guy like, "Oh yeah, I love the Hawks." They've never been to a Hawks game in their life or something like that. Like you said, the whole game, they ask you, "Oh, what just happened?" The whole time.
That would be me. Okay, so I'm hearing from Sean and Desmond that you think it's more predominant in guys,
Yeah.
and it usually is about money and lifestyle.
Yeah.
Okay, Crystal and Ashley?
I was just about to
You'll
say.
have your Gucci bags and shooting around the car. That's not even as much as the bag.
Right, party.
I think it goes both ways. I really do.
No, but I think, no, I mean, because, but the thing about it is, like, you gotta understand, the girl might have got the Gucci bag from the guy that baby.
That told her.
That's true.
You know, he might give you that Gucci bag, y'all break up, you might want it back, and you might have got it from somebody that got that had it before.
That's real ugly.
I mean, the dude kind of has to. I mean, like you said, it's Atlanta. So, I mean, the whole image of what once you get far from that, like, you're not valet parking, you're not getting hollered at the compound. You know, that's just
Probably true. Okay, that's the truth. Okay, so the second question I have is, I've often wondered about the statement and why it's so popular. Can you turn a hoe into a housewife? I think the question should be, can you turn a man into a good house husband? Because typically, if infidelity is to occur in a relationship, it's going to be on the guy's part. Now, I'm not saying that women don't cheat, but more often than not, it's the man. So can you turn a man into a good house husband?
I think you can, but it has to be on the man. He has to be ready to settle down. That's the thing. You can't expect him. You can't force it. You can't rush it. He has to be like, I'm ready to settle down. I'm tired of being out of the streets. He has to find someone that he feels like he can spend the rest of his life with. If you try to force him just because the woman thinks he's a good person, I don't think it's gonna happen. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the same thing probably with females. I mean, I guess it becomes a double standard because I think we are harder on females. Especially like if you know you got like 10 homeboys and like she done missing like half of them, it's just like nah, because you know.
And you said the magic word. That's always been a double standard. That question for me is posed double. Okay, Ashley, what you think?
I do what he's saying because I think a lot of times you think you can change somebody, but it's not until they're ready. So anybody can get to a point where he can become a good house husband. Lady can be a good housewife, but they have to be willing to stop doing whatever they do to become.
I agree. It's about right that she's looking at. It's not right to somebody to change. It's not nothing happening if you can't change somebody.
Sean?
Turn a dude into one. But when you lost the girl to the streets like that, she out there. You can't
Wait. So you're saying
that's the game.
if a guy is a good guy or a bad guy, he can be changed into a good house husband, but if the girl is a hoe, then she does.
Yeah, because for a guy, it comes to a point where you're just like, all right, the game's gotten boring for me. The game's gotten boring. But even like, take the movie, like I said, we talking about this like an hour ago. Take the movie Temptation, Tyler Perry. All right, once you lost her to the streets, like once she's gotten that into her, you can't bring that back. You can't. No, you can't. That's like a game that you lost. You have to move on to another game. You can't bring that back. But like a dude, he can run the street, and then after a while,
start over.
Exactly. After a while, it's kind of like the game just becomes boring to him, so he retires.
I just want to make sure I'm hearing you. So you're saying a young lady can have whatever you define a hoe as being, whether it's a stripper, a bodies, or whatever it is. You're saying that she cannot meet someone in her life that will make her want to change her ways and stuff like that.
Yeah, she can. But the dude, once the dudes find out that she's been bodied like that, no, that streets, you're out there.
And that is, I don't like it, but that is real talk. Sean, Crystal, Desmond, and Ashley.
That's the double standard. Okay. I mean, that conversation goes to a whole other thing. You just think about this, like, the second side of that is just like, it's a difference between being a hoe and it's a difference between being a lady that's just kind of like, okay, yeah, I might have slept with a couple of dudes here and there. I'm not out there. You never know it. Like, you never know. Some women out here just like, got like 10, 20 bodies, and you walk around here like, oh man, she's bad. And you never know.
So does it depend on the way she carries herself? So if she's sexually assertive and has racked up several partners, but if she carries herself in a certain way, she has the possibility of turning into a housewife as opposed to.
You never knew.
You never know because she carries herself.
She didn't have a chance to tell her no.
She carries herself so it's not out there and everyone knows. So. It'd probably be nothing for her to get a husband.
Like I always say, the worst thing a dad wants to have is him sitting in the barbershop and his barber telling him, man, I know something about your daughter. At the end of the day, when the barbershop knows about your daughter, it's a wrap. And the streets got it.
On that note, it's a wrap. Thank you all. I really appreciate it. Thank you. All right, I'm here at Jazz in the Park with Keyshawn. I'm taking it to the streets. because I just needed to know the answer to a couple of questions. So, Keyshawn, my first question is, when dating, which sex do you think is the most guilty of using the old bait and switch technique, and which bait and switch technique do you think is used wrong?
Females are more guilty. And I think the one that they use the most is sports, acting like they're interested in all the sports and sports activities, and then once they get you or give up the goodies or whatever, they ain't studying them damn sports no more.
Okay, so you think women are more guilty than men that use it?
Well, I think so. Men, we may use. Can you use the bait and switch if a woman has a child?
Yeah,
I know some men that are guilty of using the child to get the sex.
What do you mean? So if she has a child, you pretend like you're interested in the child, but not? Is that what you mean?
They have like a little boy, you're interested in being around a little boy, and once you get around a little boy, I think they're more apt or more prone to getting up fast. But women still, y'all use this bait and switch more than me. Yeah.
Okay.
That's my take.
That's real talk with Keyshawn. And the second question is, I've always wondered why the term, you can't turn a hoe into a housewife, is a statement that's used all the time, because I feel like the question should be, can you turn a man into a good house husband? Because men are the ones that usually do the cheating. What do you think? Do you think the question should really be, can you turn a man into a good house husband?
You said men are the ones that usually do the cheating, but what constitutes being a hoe?
See, that's why I have a problem with the term, because a hoe could be a chick that's obviously a hooker, a stripper, or it could be a chick that has one too many sex partners that you think
that's my definition.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So what if 3 is your number and she has 4 partners and you think that she's a hoe? You telling me she can't be a good housewife?
She probably can be a good housewife, but I think any man's mind, no matter what number a woman tell you she don't sleep with, a man don't really want to know.
Okay.
I don't want to know, because you can say 2, that's 2 minutes for me, and it's a double standard. I can go and sleep with however many I want and tell a woman, but I don't want her judging me, but I'll be quick to judge a female. Anybody can be a good house husband, good house wife. I just think it's the people that you're dealing with in a relationship. Can they take you? I don't want no cars.
Okay. So it really,
I definitely don't want to know.
It really doesn't matter if a man or a woman has had a whole bunch of sex partners as to whether or not they can be a good wife or a husband. For you, it is based on whether, in fact, you can deal with them. That's fair.
And if you consider a hoe, you can be a good housewife, you don't revert back to being a hoe.
Okay.
I think that's same for men. Men, y'all call us hoes all the time, so men are good house husbands or whatever we call them, as long as we don't revert back to our doggish cheating ways.
Well, thank you so much, Keyshawn. I appreciate that. Let's real talk with Keyshawn. All right. Well, I had a wonderful time today here in Atlanta at Piedmont Park at the Jazz Festival. The relationship rescuer had a few questions. I was curious. I wanted to know what was on people's mind. And today I found out. It's always my goal to educate, enlighten, and empower people. Well, today, I think I got a bit of an education. 2 questions that I asked today. The first being, when dating, which sex is most guilty of employing the old bait and switch technique? And which bait and switch technique is most popular? Well, the general consensus today was that men won the contest today. Men are most guilty of employing the old bait and switch technique. They say things that are not really true, or that are kind of sort of true, to get to the woman that they may be interested in. Some things I didn't think about today. One of the bait and switch techniques that was mentioned, that men will sometimes pretend to get close or desire to have a relationship with the woman's child or children. Also, men feign to pretend to want to have a relationship when maybe that's not really the case. They may just really only be interested in sex. And also, of course, the old obvious one, power, position, and money. So those are some of the things that were mentioned today that men may use as the old bait and switch technique to get next to a woman. The second question that I asked today is, I was always curious as to why the statement, you can't turn a hoe into a housewife, is so popular. For me, it seemed as though the question should have been, can you turn a man into a good house husband? Well, today the consensus was, it really doesn't matter what your background or what your sex is. You can't turn a hoe into a housewife or a man into a good house husband until they're ready to be a wife or a husband, until they're ready to be in a committed relationship. So it doesn't matter what your background is or what your sex is. What determines whether or not you will be a good mate is your maturity level and your commitment to the person that you're trying to be in a relationship in. So that was good to hear. Most people thought bad of that term or that phrase, you can't turn a hoe into a housewife, because it has a double standard and then it's so subjective. Who can determine what level a person, how many people a person has slept with, making a determination as to whether or not they're loose or a hoe? So, got some good information today. My crew, as always, was wonderful. Natasha, my executive producer, and Carlos, my cameraman. They made it all happen. We enjoyed the people. We enjoyed the answers. We enjoyed the festivities. It's been a wonderful day. Thank you, as always, for joining LaDawn Elliott, the relationship rescuer, on Lip Service Lounge. And until next time, when we're back in the streets with I'm Curious, I Just Want to Know What's on Your Mind, we go away with love and much love. Thank you. Enjoy your day.
About your loving.